Remember, the struggles along the way are only meant to shape you for your purpose. Sometimes you need to get knocked down before you can really figure out what your fight is and how you need to fight it. To feel the pain and sting of defeat, to activate the real passion and purpose. It is the reason you are on the planet at this particular time in history. Your very existence is wrapped up in the things you are here to fulfill. When I dare to challenge the system that would relegate us to victims and stereotypes with no clear historical backgrounds, no hopes or talents, when I questioned that method of portrayal, a different path opened up for me. The path to my destiny. When God has something for you, it doesn't matter who stands against it. If it's meant for you, I don't know what your future is, but if you're willing to take the harder way, the more complicated one, the one with more failures at first than successes, the one that has ultimately proven to have more meaning, more victory, more glory, then you will not regret it.
Two little kids, Ian and Taylor, who recently passed from cancer. I was communicating with them, knowing that they were both terminal. And what they said to me is, and their parents said, they're trying to hold on till this movie comes. And to a certain degree, you hear them say that and you're like, I gotta get up and go to the gym. I gotta get up and go to work. I gotta learn these lines. I gotta work on this accent. But seeing how the world has taken this on, seeing how the movement, how it's taken on a life of its own, I realized that they anticipated something great. And I think back now to a kid waiting for a toy that I was going to get a chance to experience, or a video game. I did live life waiting for those moments. And so it put me back in the mind of being a kid, just to experience those two little boys. And when I found out that it means a lot.
Why do you think it's important that right now we see, Black Panther on the big screen?
Anytime is a great time for a Black Panther movie. If they could have done it 10 years ago, it would have been great. If they could have done it 20 years ago, it would have been great.
On both sides, as an African American, and seeing people from the continent, I've seen the divide for my entire life. I went through my phase of trying to find Africa and not knowing, well, which place am I from?
Wow.
And I've seen Africans who viewed us in a particular way where you're not connected.
Right.
You don't know where you're from. And at the same time, love parts of our culture. So there's been this weird dynamic. I don't know the oral tradition because I didn't grow up with it. If I knew exactly where I came from growing up, I would have had an oral tradition from that place.
Right.
I never had that. So this movie, in a certain way, creates a story that we all share. Everybody is the hero in their own story. You should see yourself conquering, the dramatic action of whatever you're trying to do. So when you get to crisis, you know how to deal with it. You should be able to do that. And there are people that come in and help you with your story, but you have to be the person who deals with the conflicts that are in place. Even if you pray to God, God expects you to do some things. So I think you have to be that hero.
During my junior and senior years, I lived in a house off campus at Bryant Street. For those of you who don't know what that means, that's at the bottom of the hill where the incline gets real. Almost every day I would walk the full length of the hill to Fine Arts, where most of my classes were, carrying all of my books, because once you walk that far on foot, you're not walking back home. Each of you had your own unique difficulties with the hill. For some of you, the challenge was actually academics. You did your best, but you didn't make A's or B's, sometimes C's. You never made the dean's list, but that's okay. You're here on top of the hill. You and your family struggled to make ends meet, Every semester of your matriculation, you had to stand in one line to get to another line, to get to another line for somebody that might help you. You had to work an extra job or two. Your hardest struggle was social. Some of you never fit in. You were never as cool and as popular as you wanted to be, and it bothers you. So your social struggles here became psychological. Even though you made it up the hill, you carry the baggage of rejection with you, but you're here. Or some of you went through something traumatic. You made it to the top of the hill, but not without scars and bruises. Most of you graduating here today struggled against one or more of the impediments or obstacles I mentioned in order to reach this hilltop. When completing a long climb, one first experiences dizziness and shortness of breath due to the high altitude. But once you become accustomed to the climb, your mind opens up to the tranquility of the triumph. Oftentimes, the mind is flooded with realizations that were for some reason harder to come to when you were at a lower elevation. At this moment, most of you need some realizations because right now you have some big decisions to make. Right now, I urge you, in your breath, in your eyes, in your consciousness, invest in the importance of this moment. As is often the case, those that follow most often enjoy the results of the progress you gain. I was on a roll when I entered the system of entertainment, theater, television, and film. In my first New York audition for a professional play, I landed the lead role. From that play, I got my first agent. From that agent, I got an on-screen audition. I felt like Mike Tyson when he first came on the scene, knocking out opponents in the first round. With this soap opera gig, I was already promised to make six figures, more money than I had ever seen. I was feeling myself. I was let go from that job. On the next day, a phone call from my agent. They decided to go another way. The questions that I asked set the producers on guard and perhaps paved the way for a less stereotypical portrayal for the black actor that stepped into the role after me. As the scripture says, I planted the seed and Apollos watered it, but God kept growing. God kept it growing. Yet and still, when you invest in a seed, watching it grow without you, that is a bitter pill to swallow. A bitter pill. Anybody that's ever been fired knows what I'm talking about. Even if you really don't want the job, when they let you go, it's like any breakup. You act like you don't care. I didn't need that damn job anyway. But when you have those moments alone, you start to wonder if there was a better way to handle it. And if you could have handled it better, maybe you could help your family. And then before you know it, you're broke. And you find yourself scraping together change just so you can ride the subway so that you can get the next job. And maybe if you could book something else, that would eclipse the feeling of doubt that's building. But it seems like you can't pay them to hire you now. And I definitely didn't want to be caught dead going after a fake Hollywood pipe dream. I'm more of a writer-director anyway, so forget their stories. I can tell my own stories. How would I maneuver through all of this? Finally, I thought of Ali in the middle of the yard, in his elder years, drawing from his victories and his losses. At that moment, I realized something new about the greatness of Ali and how he carried his crown. I realized that he was transferring something to me on that day. He was transferring the spirit of the fighter in me. Sometimes you need to feel the pain and sting of defeat to activate the real passion and purpose that God predestined inside of you.